I want to pack as much helpful information into the session as possible. So David, I think you have a unique story in terms of how you got started. So do you mind telling us about your affiliation with UCF and how you've moved into this path?
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for bringing us all together here. I joined UCF in the master's program and went through in materials science and engineering through PhD. I was a member of Dr. Sudipta Seal's research group, and our group's focus was nanotechnology, materials science, and I got involved in a project working on rocket propellants and rocket fuels and better materials to improve safety and performance for space launch applications, military applications, kind of anywhere that rocket technology is used. And through the course of my studies, we filed patents, we developed some intellectual property. And when I finished my PhD, I took one class at UCF on technology entrepreneurship. It's taught by Dr. Tom O'Neill. It just opened my perception of what I could do next, not necessarily what I need to do, but this is a possibility to take a technology that was developed at a university and commercialize it. I followed some of those steps, some of the things that were taught in the class and elsewhere that I picked up, including applying for SBIR funding, writing proposals. And it turned out that our technology was extremely exciting to everybody in the rocket community. It had a lot of commercial potential, so founded the company. And ever since then, we've been turning what was a laboratory technology, basically the results of some experiments, which is what you get when you take a technology from the university, and turn it into a product that can be manufactured and commercialized and sold. And it's been quite a journey since there, but I'm definitely the kind of quintessential inventor, founder, technology person who's now kind of really deep in the world of business.
So in a couple of sentences, what does Helicon Chemicals do?
So we have invented the biggest innovation in rocket propellant and fuel technology probably in the last 40 years. And we came along with something that nobody had been able to do before, which is pack more energy and higher efficiency into a smaller volume and actually make it really safe and easy to use.
One of the things that stood out to me when we were chatting about the technology was that there was a lot of hype around another type of invention using a different base. Talk about the nano aluminum.
Fuels that are used in rockets, like aluminum, so it's a metal that burns. It's really dense, so that's why it's a very good performing fuel in principle. So this a material like nano aluminum, so nano material as opposed to a conventional material. On paper, it looked like, hey, this is the best idea. This should really work. People tried it and it didn't work. So why the heck didn't it work? The community and others looking into it just kind of gave up on it. And I was a little tenacious and said, no, I'm going to figure out why it didn't work. And we did figure out why, and we figured out how to make it work. And then we patented that, and that was the foundation of the business. So we're kind of nano aluminum 2.0.
It sounded like there were some unique barriers that you were already facing besides like trying to figure out why the nano aluminum wasn't working, that there were things happening with the space industry around the same time, correct? Like in terms of funding?
Timing is extremely important when it comes to anything in life, really, but business as well. We started the business back in 2012, and this was kind of coming right off of the closure of the space shuttle program. SpaceX wasn't a household name yet. It was really not that long ago, but really different landscape in terms of the commercial space industry. We didn't need to invent a better rocket. We just needed to invent a better fuel. But then fast forward to today, and our product development has gone extremely well, and the landscape is totally different. I mean, I don't have to tell everybody now, SpaceX and Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic, and then a bunch of other players are, I mean, commercial space is a big deal right now. So the timing, I think, has been favorable for us now, whereas at the beginning it was a bit of a challenge, but I think we kind of hit it as things were ramping up. So it's good timing.
But in terms of like those early action steps, do you recall what kind of the order of things was?
One thing that's maybe not the best way to do it is go and say, "Hey, I've got this great idea. Do you like it?" Because people will naturally say, "Oh yeah, that sounds great," because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So it takes time to understand what the customer really wants. And I kind of lucked out because I got kind of lucky in that sense that I was able to get funded through the SBIR program without doing a lot of kind of groundwork on customer discovery. But I can tell you that since that point in time, I've done a ton of customer discovery and still continue to do it to this day, talking to everybody and learning. I mean, even after doing this for several years, I still learn something new every day about the problems that our potential customers or actual customers face and what their pain points are, and how we can help them.
You also participated in the iCorp program, is that correct?
Yeah, that's kind of where I really heard the term customer discovery hammered home. So I don't know if everyone's familiar with iCorp. It's an NSF funded program. There's a local one that I participated in that was at UCF. There's a national program also. But the gist of it is, so you have to kind of pitch an idea, a business idea, to get into the program. But then what you do is customer discovery interviews. You kind of learn how to interview customers, potential customers, anyone who might be a customer, and take data. It's all about data that you gather, assimilating that data into translate into what it means for your product or your market, and you test your hypotheses, your assumptions, and they either survive or they don't. And in my case, when I did that, I actually didn't do that for a rocket fuel concept, but my assumptions were not right. What I discovered in the iCorp program, my idea was good from a technology standpoint, but the approach that I took to saying, well, these are the types of customers we want, this is the type of product we should develop using that technology. No, it wasn't correct. And the iCorp it's really valuable. And if I hadn't done that and I'd launched that business venture with incorrect assumptions, I would have probably wasted a lot of time and money. So it's really important to do that.
So was that towards the end of the program where you realized, okay, this is not the direction that I should be going? Or did it happen at some midpoint where you could course correct before you finish the program?
Yeah. So I mean, if you've done enough homework before you start this endeavor of really intense customer discovery, hopefully you're not completely off base about whether or not anybody might want this. But the people you think might want it, maybe they don't, or there's a twist, or there's a pivot that you can do. So we pivoted our idea, but around the midpoint, we knew that we were getting some answers and learning some things that sort of contradicted our starting assumptions and hypotheses. And then by the end, we were able to put, you could put a pitch together that's actually targeted. It's on point, and it's based not on, well, I think this, I think that. It's actually based on hard data, because it's not one or two people you talk to, but statistically, you can say I interviewed 50 people, and 75% said this. It's data, and that's a lot more valuable than opinions.
Yeah, I believe that. And you've been through that. You're not a novice at SBIR. You've been through many rounds in different phases rather of SBIR.
I like to say we've gotten good at this, but our business model is not to only do SBIRs. Some companies maybe are out there that eventually you might get a bad reputation if you never commercialize anything and you only get SBIR funding. So that's not our business model. But it's a great way to get started. And even if you're a larger company, you have a new idea and just need some seed funding to pursue a new concept, it's still a really good way. So we've gone that whole path from phase one, proposal, award, phase two, phase three. And then now our current status at Helicon is the product development is done. And now we're at the early stages of going into manufacturing of the product.
Can you talk about what the SBIR funding did for you as a startup? What it enabled you to do that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise?
Yeah, well, it's non-dilutive funding, which is really important. I mean, if you can get that, it's really nice. It does have strings attached because you have to perform on the contract, right? It's in our case, it's not a grant that we could do everything or anything we wanted to do with that funding. You're working to fill the terms of that contract, and depending on the type of SBIR contract, it forces you to operate like a much larger company than you are, because you have to be able to have an accounting system that can handle government contracts, which is, I mean, you can't just scribble your accounting system on the back of an envelope. You have to have a really sophisticated business policies, procedures in place. You get audited by the government when you get a phase two contract, and we get audited all the time. Anything from like our inventory handling system, accounting and finance, and everything. And so it forces you at an early stage to develop policies and procedures in terms of how you run the company, that then when you need to scale, well, you already have that, and you can scale much more easily than if you didn't have all of that in place, and all of a sudden you need to grow quickly and you're like, well, how do we do this? Well, you kind of know, because you had to operate like a larger company than you really are when you just get started that way.
I would presume that those types of skills come in quite handy when it goes to fundraising and you've got investors looking at your projections and how you intend on spending the money that you raise, and being able to understand the fundamentals around that.
When it comes to fundraising and even developing projections for future contracts and budgets, whether it's fundraising or not, you need to have financial projections going out 12 months or 2 years, or for fundraising, usually it's 5 years. You want to see what's happening in the next 5 years. And you will, if you've done your own accounting, or you really understand how that works, then you'll be able to put together projections that people will be actually impressed. Like what I found a lot is that because we've been doing government contracts, we really know how money gets spent. We track it really, really well. And so we can project it really, really well into the future too.
So SBIR helped get you kind of kick-started with being able to pay staff and do some marketing and outreach, that customer discovery. When you started pitching to raise money from investors, what was that experience like? What did you learn? How did you do it?
Investors don't think like normal human beings. That was like my first impression. Like the things that I care about, the investors oftentimes do not care about. So especially if you're coming from you're the science or the technology, you care so much about how great this stuff is. The investors, like, they care, okay, but like it works. Okay, good. Show me who's going to buy it. How much is it going to cost, and who's going to buy it, and when are they going to buy it? I started doing engaging with investors and pitching the company, or not ideas. We already had the company, but pitching before we were even ready to do fundraising, because number one, the opportunities were there. Number two, it really helped. It helped me understand what to put into a pitch, and it's not the same thing as going to a technical conference. When you get started with SBIR, and I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, it definitely isn't. A lot of people don't do the SBIRs, but you get revenue, right? So you've got revenue, and if you have $500,000 in revenue or $1 million in revenue from contracts, SBIR, STTR, that looks really good. That kind of, people are, the government anyway, and are putting money into, taxpayer dollars in this case, but they're putting money into it, which means it validates you, and it also gives gives you that credentials of, well, we're not pre-revenue. Actually, you can be profitable, not really profitable, but you're at least breaking even with a few $100,000 or maybe $1 million in revenue. That looks a lot better when you're pitching to investors than, well, no, nobody's ever paid for this and we don't have any revenue yet. The pitching is, it's extremely time consuming. Be prepared for that. If you're going to want to raise money, that's basically a full-time job. Just pitching, putting everything that goes into it is extremely time consuming, and it's very, very different from your day job with the company.
You know, the technology was invented, but what was the licensing process like for you? And how long did it take?
It takes a while because you want to have a good negotiation and a license agreement that really is a fit for what you want to do with that technology that you're licensing. One thing I really like about being a licensee of technology from UCF is that the university, there's so many, there's so much help available for an entrepreneur coming out of UCF. Just resources. The university is not going to work for you for free, but there's so much. I mean, we're in the Business Incubator. You have access to resources and advice from really, really top-notch people, Kelly, like yourself, who have been through this before, who can really help you out and teach you some of the things that you don't know, which when you get started is going to be most of what you need to do. You're not going to have done before. But also, I think it's fair to say this, but negotiate hard too. You've got to represent yourself and get a good deal from the university.
David, thank you so much for giving back to UCF and for giving your time today and to me earlier this week. It was really a pleasure to learn about you and Helicon, and I think on behalf of everyone, we wish you much success in sending rockets to space. So thank you, everybody. Have a terrific weekend.